I feel like diet culture sets you up to never be good enough.
Did you burn 500 calories on the treadmill today? No? Me either.
I mean, anybody can sit with us. We're just really not about diet culture.
But literally, happiness doesn't come from a low-calorie, high-intensity life. I actually do like carrots.
I do too. They're my favorite.
Welcome to the Fit Fueled Free podcast.
So basically, diets suck.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 60 of the Fit Fueled Free podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jenna.
And today we're picking up with the fourth part of our 10-part series on intuitive eating with principle number 4, challenge the food police.
So you want me to start off and I'll read the blurb at the top?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the beginning of every episode for this mini-series, we are reading the actual intro paragraph for each principle that kind of just gives a brief description about all of these principles. So I'm going to go ahead and read this one on the food police. So, scream a loud no to thoughts in your head that declare you're good for eating minimal calories or bad because you ate a piece of chocolate cake. The food police monitor the unreasonable rules that diet culture has created. The police station is housed deep in your psyche, and its loudspeakers shouts negative blurbs,
Like,
hopeless phrases, and guilt-provoking indictments. Chasing the food police away is a critical step in returning to intuitive eating. So I think we should kick it off with some food rules that most people probably either have heard or tell themselves that this quote-unquote food police enforce. So some common ones that you've probably heard are sweets are bad, no food after 6 p.m., or this, I hate this one so much, no carbs after dark. You should take in little to no grams of fat, avoiding carbs at all costs. Dairy products are bad, salt is bad, bread will make me gain weight, etc. Things like that. That is all food rules that the food police enforces through diet culture.
they're so cringy.
I know. And the fact that I believed half of these is just even cringier.
I know.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it really is. So basically, your food police is the sum of your dieting and food rules.
Yep.
And it's kind of that voice that's going to keep you in check. So this chapter breaks it down into kind of the different ways that we do this to ourselves. So the food police being that just overall like negative voice. But I just want to point out, because I think this is constantly a good reminder, that if policing ourselves actually worked, like the whole be motivated, be disciplined, blah, 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 garbage, when it comes to food, that is literal trash. And if that worked, Jenna and I wouldn't be here having that conversation with people, because we wouldn't have a need to have health professionals helping people heal.
Correct.
Because there would be nothing to heal from, because this policing would have kept ourselves perfectly wonderful and we'd all be happy, healthy individuals if it worked. And that might sound a little dramatic, but I think that's the problem with all of diet culture BS, is that it fails us repeatedly and then makes us feel like individual failures, but actually like it's more like F the system, because it's the system that's the problem. Unfortunately, we can't just change that. We have to start with ourselves. And so that's where you have to work on fighting and challenging the food police in order to make progress here. So the nutrition informant is like this part of the food police that they describe as providing that nutrition evidence that keeps you dieting and like believing everything diet culture says. So this one tends to, like, in today's world, it's a guise in the name of health, essentially, which we've talked about, like the wellness diet, quote unquote. So basically, we're saying that as a society, we believe that skinny is synonymous with healthy, and that is by far not inherently the truth. So in reality, we're just creating rules exactly the same way as this, like, we all could usually say, oh, diets are bad, blah, 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 I want a lifestyle change. But it's literally just rules wrapped up in a pretty different package that's more in line with what we want to say as a society, because we don't actually want to, like, face these negative things within ourselves. And so I would like to say, as a dietitian, again, I do believe nutrition matters, but if your mind's not right, it's irrelevant. And so this nutrition information will come later on. You're never going to forget the calories that you know. Food labels are everywhere. Like, that stuff is everywhere, right? Yeah. However, it doesn't have to be the determining factor for making choices. And we can practice, like, letting that kind of diffuse, or like rationalizing it with other information. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah. There's also the diet rebel, which is another form of the food police. And basically what that is it's like the self-sabotager. So I kind of touched on that in episode or part 3 of this mini series. And basically it's like this loud bellowing voice in your head, essentially, that is very angry and determined and kind of rebelling against all of these things. But in the sense of it's out of, I don't know if spite is the right word, but it kind of, like, some of the examples the book gave is like, you're not going to get me to eat like that plain, like, boiled chicken, or like, you know, like, let's see how many cookies I can stuff into my mouth before, like, mom or whoever comes home. Or like, I can't wait to eat when, like, my partner goes out of town so I can eat whatever I want without their glares. So it's kind of, you know, not like counter all of this stuff, but it's, you know, there's still this insecurity and judgment that it's feeling from people within the diet culture world. And so it's essentially self-sabotaging you. And I think it can be, you know, this voice can help you in the sense that, like, use that anger and frustration and, like, flip it. And, like, stand up for yourself and use it to, like, help protect your boundaries against anyone who's trying to invade your eating space. So, like, say you have a relative, like, at a holiday get together who's always like, oh, like, Jenna, get a second helping, or Jenna, like, go get more, or like, do you want, like, or not even saying, like, do you want, it's just like, oh, finish your plate kind of deal. It's like you advocating and standing up for yourself and using that anger, the righteous anger, to be like, no, like, you're not in charge of me. Like, you don't, I know my body, you don't. And so this is one of the ones that, you know, can be helpful if you use it in the right way to stand up for you.
Yeah. And be as sassy as you want, or just, like, matter of fact. It could be something as simple as, like, because this is a real big issue around holidays as well, like the fear around eating too much and gaining weight. Just, like, I don't engage in diet talk. Like, could we talk about, I don't know, who's winning the football game right now? Like, just literally, like, change the topic. What the color of the sky? Like, I don't care what it is, but change it. And probably people, like, you might get looked at weird. That's a risk you're always gonna have to take when you go against the grain of society, for your own benefit. But you can protect yourself, or just leave if you can. You don't, like, drive away, but, like, if you can exit. But if you can't, just say, like, hey, like, that's not something I really like to talk about, like, or just even don't even say that and just try and change the topic, like, whatever makes you feel more comfortable, but like, stand up for yourself in some way to protect you from that. And not because, like, you can't deal with it, I'm not saying that, but, like, it's just not the kind of energy or space you need for yourself when you're healing. And I don't tolerate that stuff when I can at all help it anyway. Okay, so in flipping the script from the food police, the diet rebel, the nutrition informant, the book gives some particular different I guess roles we can play. So the food anthropologist, which I really like that title, but it's just a non-judgmental observer of what's going on within your body and, like, your life around food. And I'll let you talk about this one because you always love talking about your journals.
Yeah, so like an easy way to bring this into action again would be to keep a food journal for the sole purpose of giving yourself clues about your body and its cues, not as a sneaky diet culture way to like track what you're eating to control it or manipulate it, but use this essentially as like a learning and discovery tool to be like, okay, like kind of how we've talked about in previous episodes, like how did I feel before I ate? How did I feel when I ate this? Like, what were the feelings emotionally that came up? What were the feelings physically? And this kind of can help you to be the person like you're investigating for yourself and figuring out like what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, how you feel. And even like, oh, like I didn't have time or I skipped breakfast today, but by like 11 o'clock, I was ravenous. So maybe that's a cue to be like, eat a little something before, or if I'm like short on time, make sure that I've either prepped something the night before or that I have like a bar ready to go that can just hold me over until I do have time to eat. But it's the voice and like the role that's going to help you to assess how you feel. So that way you can honor your body and its cues and your hunger to continue moving towards a healthy relationship with food.
And I'll put a little plug in too for the intuitive eating workbook here. It's a super great resource for like worksheets and like guides like that. The authors of Intuitive Eating, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, also co-authored. So it goes hand in hand with the book and gives you tangible activities like that and like charts and stuff to kind of track this stuff. And it's not expensive and it's really helpful. So I do really recommend that to anyone going through this kind of journey, just for extra homework on top of like some of the prompts that we give you as well, if you want to.
Yeah.
So the nurturer, just the nice gentle voice of like, it's okay to blah 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 have that dessert or to eat the pizza, whatever the thing is that's super scary, and to give you compassion, that is so extremely important in all of this work in our lives in general, and just so much nicer than the harsh like messages we can give to ourselves all the time.
Yeah. And then lastly, the intuitive eater is the last one. So this is obviously listening to your gut reactions, because we're all born intuitive eaters. It's the culture and society that we live in that has kind of created and enforced this food police. It could be like, family situations you grew up in, or financial situations, whatever it is, but any type of situation that has pulled you away from this intuitive eater that we were inherently created to be. So they kind of take the stance. Obviously, that is what we talk about, and the place that we hope you are able to get to, if you're not already there, is honoring your body. Like, okay, my stomach is growling, I need to eat. Like, what do I feel like eating for dinner tonight? And honoring that, as opposed to like, what should I eat? And again, it's not taking, nutrition and like fueling your body completely out the window, but it's not obsessing over ignoring every single cue and ignoring what your body wants just because you feel like you should, air quotes, eat something.
Yeah.
And so it's just like being in touch with those cues that we talked about in the first episodes of this, of like the gurgling of your stomach, or like feeling faint, like not allowing yourself to get to those points because you're at this place where like you are so in sync with your body that like you're able to be like, okay, like I don't want to get to the point where I feel faint, so I'm going to honor and respect what my body needs.
Yeah. And if anyone listening had this experience or knows someone that had like feeding issues as an infant, or was like failure to thrive as a child and didn't really have the opportunity to be an intuitive eater, I do still believe that you are able to get to that point. It just, things might look a little bit different for you, but everyone's journey is going to look a little bit different, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
All right, time for action items. So first thing is, let's transfer the negative self-talk into positive self-talk. So what this is not is sitting here and thinking, I'm never going to talk rude to myself again. Not realistic. It's catching yourself in the moment, one way of doing this, and literally challenging why you said that to yourself and trying to change it into something a little bit more positive in that exact moment. Like, address it right now. Take the should nots, the can'ts, like that was bad, like I will never, all those inherently like negatively connotated words out of the way you talk to yourself in practice, and try to make it a more rational statement. So like, get help with that professionally, like a therapist, or journal around it if you need to. You can also like preemptively practice like positive affirmations that you can sit down and work on that come before you've like had these negative thoughts, which is really, 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 really hard to do if you are in the habit of doing it, which shows how like negative our brains really like to be. And I know we've shared this before, but like, it's like a thing with our brains to focus more on negative things because of our like body's natural instinct to like, we do need anxiety to like get out of danger.
Yeah.
But
protect ourselves.
so we like pay more attention to that stuff. But like, if you're not in danger and you're just basically at some points endangering yourself with these
creating it
thoughts, like that's how we change that. Thinking in gray rather than black and white. So two things can exist simultaneously. Like, something uncomfortable can be happening, but like it's also fine, and something good can be happening while something absolutely like traumatic and horrific is happening. And I think realizing that is where that gray comes into place. It's very hard. I've struggled with this my entire life, and I still struggle with it a lot. But an example would be, you could pick a less nutrient food or like a fear food, and you have energized your body with that food and morally are unchanged. Both exist at the same time. And when we can kind of like try to think like that, it helps. Yeah.
And allowing yourself to be in both places. Like, one of the best pieces of advice I got from a friend actually recently, she was like, you're allowed to like grieve while simultaneously feeling joy about something else. And I don't know where that stems from, where like we don't feel like we can be in a space where we can allow both, but it's like, we're human and we experience a huge range of different emotions, and like they're allowed to exist in the same space. Now, you don't want to stay in like that grief indefinitely, but like you're allowed to experience that and feel it also while feeling joy. And I think it applies like perfectly to this as well. And so just giving yourself the freedom to do that and to feel that.
Yeah. Another tangible item is to fact check catastrophic thinking. This is something I have to practice all the time because my brain goes into very frightening places and very irrational thinking, and I have to use knowledge that I have, and sometimes I try not to seek validation, because that's a pretty toxic trait of a person to do all the time. But you have to use like facts that you have to counter those thoughts, or like they're probably not going to go away unless something like actually like good or bad happens in the moment. But that's not something you can depend on to like fully distract you from that thinking.
Right. Yeah.
So like, I ate this thing, so then I'm going to gain all this weight, and then I'm never going to stop gaining weight, and then like no one will love me. That's catastrophic thinking. Very easy to like go there.
Yeah.
But we can just come back with one simple fact of one eating opportunity will do nothing to change you other than to give you energy or not. And that's here right now. We're not, 17 years down the road. We're just in the present moment, and coming back to that is a good thing to practice.
Yeah.
So another one is to celebrate victories. So I think it's important to pick positives out of an overall like shitty situation, not to like gaslight yourself into thinking nothing's wrong. Like, I literally hate it when people are like, well, everyone's going through it, or it could be worse. I hate that, because you're disregarding your own feelings. So, whatever. Some people may be fine with it. They're not doing this, but I think that you're not allowing yourself to like experience something. And I think as a society, we don't want to feel bad. So like we've been taught these things, like it happens to kids all the time. Like, oh, you're fine. When maybe they're not. And so then they're taught, oh, I'm not supposed to not be okay. It's like this whole thing, right? So celebrate your victories, but also it's kind of that like two things existing at once. Like it could be an absolutely horrific day, but like if you ate breakfast and you don't usually eat breakfast, that's an important victory. Even if you restricted the rest of the day, worst case scenario, like, or you over exercise, or you like do some other like self-harmy kind of behavior to yourself, you're still allowed to like point out something good that's happening, and not to like make it again seem like nothing wrong is going on. But I think we need to recognize those things to be challenging this overall negative messaging. Okay, so I have a little thing to share as well. So process thinking versus linear thinking. Oh wait, that's not what that's about. So that one is like, if we're thinking that I'm going to start healing my relationship with food, and then tomorrow I'm going to be able to eat this, and then by the date that I predetermine in my head, I'm going to be fine. I'm never going to stress about my body image ever again. That's not realistic. That's linear thinking. Recovery and healing relationship with food is not a linear journey. It's going to look absolutely crazy. And just having that expectation and allowing yourself to have good like recovery and healing focused thoughts, but also have like disordered and diet culture thoughts at the same time doesn't mean you're doing it wrong.
Correct.
Okay, so the thing that happened that I had this epiphany about the other day. So I get self-conscious sometimes about my dark circles, just because they are very dark. It's a genetic thing. I sleep plenty. It just, my eyeballs are sunken into my head and I have dark circles. It is a fact. Sometimes because I put so much concealer and brightener on day to day, when I see myself like that, and some days is worse than others, it's like, oh my gosh. Like, so the other morning or it might have been before bed, but it was either or. I was looking in the mirror and literally my first thought was, I look like a troll. I don't know where that came from. I don't know where that thought popped into my head, but it did. And I was like, you know what? Like, screw that. And then I just said to myself, I don't think I said it out loud, but I was thinking to myself, this is what I look like right now. So I took the like super negative, nasty self-talk and just made it this like neutral fact, because if in that moment I had said, you're beautiful no matter what, like I'm a pretty like aesthetically driven person, and I knew in that moment I did not look my best self, but it didn't matter. That's the whole point. Like, it literally didn't matter. And I could have chosen this narrative of like, you're disgusting, like you look awful, like so therefore you are blah 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 blah, and I could have like gone with that. But something in me, probably this practice and lots of therapy time, has told me like, you need to counter that thought and change your narrative. And so I did it, and then I felt so much better. It didn't change how I looked, but that wasn't the point, because that's not actually what matters. Just like what we weigh isn't actually what matters. And so that reminded me of this, of like these like negative policing voices that are in our head, like you're not good enough unless blah blah blah, to be able to challenge that and nurture myself felt so much nicer, because I could have just completely spiraled otherwise.
Look at that growth work.
I know, it's exciting.
That's awesome.
So another thing, like nutrition specific, that has been on my mind a lot lately in this regard is about Cliff Bars. So Cliff Bars are typically not regarded very highly as a snack bar of choice because of their sugar content. And if you like, one, look at the package or go on Cliff Bar's website, literally Cliff Bars were made to be a source of fueling for someone that's like doing some kind of endurance activity, like hiking, biking, like running, swimming, whatever. It's for that. I'm not saying you can't use it outside of that, but it's literally made with all those sugars to break down quickly to refuel your glycogen stores so that you can keep going. Like it's fuel in a package for convenience. So yeah, it's going to have simple sugars in it because that's the freaking point. You don't want a high fiber, low sugar product if you want to fuel, despite what the commercials on TV tell you, because there's these protein bars that are like talking about energizing you, and that's literal trash. But anyway, currently there's a Kind Bar commercial that, and I actually have an issue with Kind Bar. I will straight up say this with their marketing, because they also have a lot of like sugars in their product, but I think they have like different versions now. But anyway, they were like commercial bashing Cliff Bars for the ingredients, aka to like benefit financially off of like making people think, oh, like Cliff Bars are bad, let me eat Kind Bars instead. Literal garbage. And if we just come back to like these distorted facts with an agenda hurt us and benefit these other people. So like we have to challenge these thoughts. So like when you hear someone just going like hard into something like that, like obviously in the context of this podcast, we're anti-diet culture. So we're going to go hard against these like negative messaging. But like if you just like get this intrusive message that can come from anywhere, like question it, because chances are there's a diet culture, which is also like a money agenda. And it is literal garbage.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to fact check myself because I'm really worried. I just trashed Kind Bar and it's another brand, but I'm almost positive it's Kind Bar.
I haven't seen that commercial, but.
Oh, well, when I Googled it, it says that they're feuding. Oh, yeah. They began airing a national TV commercial in June of last year, actually, that seemed not very kind because it pitted its product against a competitor. And also, oh, yeah, they talked about the brown rice syrup, but Kind Bar is simply almonds. Also, Kind Bars are kind because of their environmental impact. They're not kind because of them being a superior product. So, like, that's just like Trader Joe's. Oh my gosh, this makes me literally irate. Trader Joe's is not some like clean eating health store. It's about the way that they procure their food. And you can't just like, they have stuff in their store just like Food Lion has. Like it's just packaged differently because of where they like their trade laws and like how they more ethically like source things to be better to the world and to people. So fact check, that's my thing. Now I'm just mad. Anyway, that's my point. But yeah, it's gonna take one day and one step at a time to do these things.
Yeah. And I think just examining your thoughts whenever they come in, challenging them, and kind of just sitting with everything you're feeling and accepting yourself and extending like grace and compassion.
Or just getting freaking furious.
Or getting pissed off. That's an alternative as well. Yeah, I mean, get mad. You should get mad because like we've all been pushed into this way of thinking and living and treating our bodies and food, and it's a bunch of crap. Yeah. And we're here to help you at least try and break away from that because there's so much freedom on the other side. So come join us.
Yeah. Okay. On that much more pleasant note, thank you guys for listening. We will be continuing our 10-part series on intuitive eating. I I'm not 100% sure when this episode is airing, but we will potentially be taking some more breaks soon, just because that was the natural plan with the holiday before I decided to move to Colorado randomly. So just be prepared for that. But if you want to keep up with what we've got going on, follow us on Instagram at FitFieldFree, and then our personal pages. So Jenna's is Jen at Fit, and mine is Dietitian Dani Cast. We greatly appreciate ratings and reviews. You can find us anywhere podcasts are found, pretty much. We're also on YouTube, and we do have that Gmail account. It's probably easier for people to just DM, but we do have that. So fitfeelfree@gmail.com for any questions, comments, concerns, or victory stories that you have. So thank you guys again for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you later, guys.
Bye.